How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. We're going to talk about the question posed in the thumbnail and maybe the title. Is Paige Bueckers a superstar? How good is she already? And when studying her tape, there's two things that pop out that are kind of opposed to each other, and we're going to get into them. But the first one is her unbelievable intermediate shot making and just shot making overall. We've seen some disgusting highlights lately of Paige busting out her bag of tricks against switches right here. Gets the blow by. That's one change of speed. That's two change of speed. That's another step back. And man, like she is money from that mid area all over the court. Becker's ability to create separation going east and west, right? Not necessarily. Okay, let me give me my thing. Not necessarily always going straight downhill, but she's gonna open up this defender, stopping on a dime right here to get to this pull-up jumper. Like she has a little bit of this isolation creation, and it relies on the mid-range jumper, being able to get to that spot. She's always had an incredible mid-range jumper, and again, this ability to stop on a dime, change directions, go behind the back. And if you're enjoying these Paige Bueckers buckets, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. All of that is super, super helpful. Maybe you think you're subscribed, but you might not be. So go double check. And Bueckers' mid-range scoring is even deadlier out of the pick and roll, where she can reject the screen. She sees this defender, Gabby Williams, fighting hard over, so she's just going to take back the middle. And when you're playing drop coverage on Paige, she is going to find the sweet spot. And her feel for scoring in space is kind of preternatural, honestly. Where this is the perfect time to take the shot, right when Gabby Williams peels. Nneka is supposed to step up. There's a little soft spot, and Bueckers can quickly rise and fire into that little pocket. So she's so good at sensing when to take the shot and when is going to be the perfect time. And she has a whole deep bag of tricks again to create. She puts Natasha Cloud on her back initially right here, realizes that her momentum is taking her this way. So Paige is just going to stop, little step through, and that's a tough shot. I mean, it's actually wide open, honestly. Cloud kind of got faked out right there, but Becker still had to quickly organize, create space for a shot like that. I think I accidentally had this clip earlier, but once again, this is the ability to rise over defenders, hit tough mid-range pull-ups. I think that's something that translates to the postseason for sure, which, unlikely for the Wings at the moment. But again, just the rhythm and pacing in the pick and roll is really, really impressive. Going to this left side of the court right here, hesitating, pulling up. Like, she really is tough to defend in drop coverage. And the Wings will get her off the ball to these actions, to these pick and rolls. We'll talk plenty about her off-ball game in a little bit. But, yeah, you're trying to, go over and have a big drop behind. But Paige is too good at stopping on a dime, step back, if you're going to give her one-on-one space. So she is a really, really impressive shot creator. And she's good at snaking back to the elbow right here, where Paige notices this defender high and drop. So she sees this space on the court is right here. So she's just simply going to dribble into that space, stop on a dime when this defender's momentum is carrying them this way, pulls up, hits the mid-range jumper. So you can see the mechanics of why, beautiful split right there, of why Paige is such an incredible mid-range shooter. She has the handle, she has the feel for the game, obviously the step back, the ability to hit contested shots, but also, like we said, just that incredible shot-making touch. But there is kind of a double-edged sword with that. This is an expected effective field goal percentage model by PBP Stats that basically, what would you expect a player to shoot in terms of expected field goal based on their shot diet? And Bueckers is last or first, I guess, in hardest shot quality. She takes the most difficult shots in the league, according to this metric, up there with AJ Wilson, a lot of aces. Courtney Williams, another mid-range shooter. Erica Wheeler's another mid-range shooter. RK, her teammate, who I feel like is known for taking tough shots at times. And that really is just because of the crazy mid-range frequency, where you can see this is wild. Just such a high percent of shots from the intermediate mid-range and the long mid-range, but she's crazy efficient everywhere. So you definitely understand it to some point, and man, she is a really impressive tough shot maker. Like we said, Paige will just post over smaller defenders, muscle them, and shoot over them and score with touch to reflex with the N1. She's really methodical and patient with these switches, where I guess they're not necessarily switches because they're guards guarding Paige. This defender initially sticks through the screen right here, doing a good job, but Paige is simply not going to turn the ball over. She's going to wait. She's going to spin and scoop it in for the and one. So Paige is in a lot of these isolation situations, late clock situations where she has to create something out of nothing, but she's really freaking good at it and has the creation and touch to make this work. But I do think there's a bit of value bleeding with just how much she can do this, where there are a good amount of possessions where Paige just takes tough shots, and it is partly because her team isn't good and she doesn't really have a bunch of other creators. RK is a really great scorer, but not much of a creator for teammates, and Paige, I think because of that, can get kind of like mid-range shot happy. One of my other like maybe nitpicks with her game is her lack of foul drawing and rim ability, where she'll catch the ball in a curl screen with a pretty clear lane to the basket and no real rim protectors in the paint, but she just settles for a mid-range shot, which she can definitely make, but that's a tougher shot than she could get otherwise if she just tried to get a little bit closer to the basket. And I'm curious about how she'll fare against like long athletic switching defenses in the playoffs who gotta cheat and not let her get in those super deadly drop situations. Bueckers is great moving off the ball, more than great. Well, again, we'll talk about that soon. So she reacts to this top lock and gets to the baseline, but Fever just switching this. They send Lexi Hull right at her, and this spacing is pretty brutal right here. Two wings standing on top of each other. Notice that a lot in this film. A lot of bad spacing, a lot of Paige being kind of forced to take tough shots. So I do think to some extent, and again, you see this, look at the spacing here. Two players in the paint right there, bringing the help. But again, Paige is definitely going to default to the mid-range jumper when she doesn't have anything else. And I am curious to what extent that is her versus her situation. I think it is a lot of her situation where she has to take a lot of tough shots on a team that's not that great and isn't conducive to her other really special traits, which we'll get to. But I do think there are maybe some athletic limitations that keep her from being a high end, primary 1A shot creator. She's a little bit stiff, where Bueckers I don't think has the flexibility to like get her torso lower than the defenders and generate leverage to the rim, but instead she picks the ball up, ends up falling over. I think that's going to end up being a turnover right there. And again, you see she can't generate much like separation with this in and out dribble right there. You want to really kind of extend that front foot like you're going that way, right? But Paige doesn't do it, and she can't get by Gabby Williams, and she ends up taking a tough shot, which again, this is a shot that Paige can make for sure, but it's a tough way to live, right? And of course, giving her plenty of grace because of the situation. She is a rookie, and she is a phenomenal rookie. And there are flashes like this where Paige is able to be more flexible. And, it's a good job taking the bump, absorbing it, keeping her straight line, using her shoulder, getting to the and one right there. This one's just nasty. The wrong foot floater and one against Jonquel Jones in transition. That is a disgusting finish from Ms. Paige Bueckers. But the real thing with her, and the conflicting thing again, is I think Paige is kind of miscast right now as an on-ball, helio, primary, heavy usage creator. I think she's one of the best off-ball players I've ever seen at any level, and she runs 32% of her scoring possessions as pick and rolls. And obviously at UConn, she could do way more spot-ups in that offense and way more cuts and stuff off the ball, but when players deny her, she'll simply slip back door, and it's good to have a good passing big to set her up. She'll just flow into her mid-range shots and get to her sweet spots where she's not going to end up scoring right there, but you can see the creation and the process. She is an unbelievable off-ball shot creator. Her relentless movement makes it really hard. Alicia Gray bites just for a second there, and Bueckers is going to pull up right there at the window, at the elbow, excuse me. And she's just really, I said it already, but relentless, hunting space and looking for ways to bail her teammates out, where Bueckers notices, again, where is the space on the court going to be? It's going to be right here because this defender is going to pull out with that ball handler, and if RK fades to the corner, this defender is also going to stay with her. So Paige knows the space is there. She just uses her craft and her footwork and her strength to get position, wedges off the defender, you get to the and one, and Paige is always going to flex after that and one. And her awesome shooting, which we'll get into in a sec, makes her a great closeout attacker, where this defender running at Bueckers, who can just blow by with pretty good speed. Like I said, she's not crazy flexible in terms of like changing, in terms of like accelerating and exploding, but she can definitely beat defenders, even quick ones off the dribble. Beautiful deceleration and tough floater. Like she is she really is that level of tough shot maker, and she always has been. But these closeout drives also help her get to the basket, where, again, this is a great defender, Natasha Cloud, closing out to Bueckers, who's able to blow by right there, finish with her left hand. Unbelievable. Unbelievable touch with Bueckers. And of course, her off-ball game is amplified by great movement shooting. She's a high-volume shooter. I think she's shooting like 34% so far, but she was a 40% high-volume shooter in college. I'm not worried at all. And defenses still treat her like a shooter. The wings will run her off screens and get her moving off of flare screens. And if you give her space from beyond the arc, way beyond the arc, even at the hash marks, she is going to pull. And that, of course, adds to her off-ball value, because if defenses fall asleep right here, Phoebish isn't able to get through this screen, and that's way too much space for a shooter like Bueckers. And again, she's the kind of player who dictates what kind of coverages you can run against her. Like you can't lazily switch and duck under and not step up to a shooter like Bueckers, even if the percentages don't necessarily reflect her being an elite shooter. And even though maybe she's not always going to go downhill against switches, she loves hunting jumpers. We've seen a couple like the viral step backs in the middies, but against Griner, she's going to just size up, get a couple feet beyond the line, fire, and that is a plenty efficient shot for Bueckers. I really think Bueckers will be at her best when she has other great teammates, because her skills, incredible feel and processing, cutting, passing, off-ball movement, shooting, defense, which I think she's been pretty solid already. I'm not going to talk about her defense in this video, but it's been solid. These are all additive skills that are conducive to winning, that help high-level teams. And that's a really valuable player to be. And Bueckers' passing fits this too, where you run her off ball. She has gravity as a scorer. This defender steps up to Bueckers. She quickly bounces it in the pocket and creates a pretty, wide open drive. Good look to that middle hook shot. Bueckers coming off the hand down, using the rescreen. Just her decision making and timing are so perfect. She's not necessarily like the anticipatory, like creative, proactive passer like a Chelsea Gray or a Caitlin Clark, but she's so good at reading the defense and punishing their mistakes, where this is a high level pass. And it's not necessarily like she's creating anything. It's the movement of the system, right? This teammate rolls hard to the rim, which occupies these two defenders. And then this defender, right, has to pick one or two, and then Bueckers skips it to the corner and ends up getting a wide open three. So she is a really impressive passer in this way, a great transition outlet passer. Like, she'll hit these balls all the way ahead to teammates in transition, even after made baskets. And she's an awesome, like, entry passer. She has the long pass gene, which I think a lot of great passers have. The accuracy, the willingness, the anticipation, the ball placement to get these seals and take advantage of the things like switches. But I do think she has some limitations as like a primary pick and roll handler passer. And I'm curious how she's going to handle more aggressive pressuring defenses, which she hasn't seen a ton of so far, at least not lately. And Bueckers, again, lacking the flexibility to like bend around the corner and get into this gap. So she tries a tough pass and ends up getting turned over. When teams don't necessarily just drop on her, again, we see the big here in a drop, kind of like veer switch, peel switch onto Bueckers, and she almost turns the ball over. While her handle is incredibly good for separating for like jumpers and east-west stuff, I don't think it's incredible at control against pressure, which I think is going to be one of the big steps for her to take if she's going to be like an on-ball creator in a real way for a great team. But like, she's an on-ball creator in a real way for a not-so-great team already. Deserving all-star. She's at 18 points per game. If you look at per 100, 28 points per 100, that puts her towards the top of the league. And she's more efficient than the league average on high usage, high assists, very low turnovers. And the on-off numbers definitely reflect that. So Bueckers' floor raising has honestly been so impressive, fueled by that incredible shot making in the mid-range. But I think at her ceiling, I would love for her usage to reflect more of like a volume off-screen, spot-up, movement player cutting to the basket than a traditional like helio pick-and-roll creator. I think if Bueckers has any weaknesses, it's that, 1v1 advantage creation downhill to the basket. And when she's playing off the ball, it's not really an issue. And when Bueckers, eventually gets better teammates, hopefully she will, sometimes she's playing all guard lineups. She doesn't have consistent center play. It's not a great situation in Dallas, obviously. They were the number one pick for a reason, but Bueckers has the kind of skill set, the quick processing, the decision making, the outside shooting, and the floor spacing, the defense, the hustle, the rebounding, all the cutting. Like, we've seen her impact winning for so long in college, and I don't think that's going to change in the W, where she doesn't need the ball 100 times a game to have huge imprints on the basketball game. And I think that's an underrated trait among like more casual-ish fans where, yeah, maybe she's not the greatest player in the world. If you give her the ball in a playoff series and ask her to be the 1A, maybe she will be that. Who knows? Maybe I'll be wrong. But I think, she's the kind of player who can take great teams over the top and help them win championships. And I think she does have the upside to be like a top 5, top 10-ish player in the league. Even if I kind of don't think she's like a superstar player yet, I think it might be a little aggressive, but Paige is awesome, and I'm really, really encouraged about the way she started her season. And let me know what you think. I love you all.